We live in an age of endless connection. Every ping, notification, and alert promises engagement, community, and relevance. And yet, the irony is staggering. The more connected we are, the lonelier we feel. We scroll through endless updates, messages, and highlights, yet genuine presence, depth, and connection remain elusive. Constant connectivity creates an illusion of intimacy. We interact with snippets of lives, curated moments, and fleeting responses, mistaking activity for meaningful engagement. The mind becomes overstimulated, craving validation while missing substance. Emotional fatigue sets in, leaving the soul yearning for connection that superficial interactions can never satisfy. In this video, we will explore the loneliness hidden behind perpetual connection. We'll uncover the psychological mechanisms that make constant engagement exhausting, why presence without depth leaves a void, and how the mind gets trapped in cycles of comparison, distraction, and superficial interaction. Most importantly, we'll reveal how to navigate a hyper-connected world without surrendering clarity, autonomy, or emotional peace. Because in a world where everyone is reachable, the truly connected are rare, and those who master this balance are untouchable. The loneliness of constant connectivity is a paradox of the digital age. We are surrounded by networks, feeds, and instant communication, yet the soul often feels isolated. The mind is constantly engaged, scrolling, responding, and observing, but depth, presence, and meaningful interaction remain scarce. This creates a peculiar dissonance, endless connection paired with profound disconnection. One reason is superficial engagement. Notifications demand attention, like signal validation, and messages create the illusion of interaction. Yet these interactions are often shallow, transactional, and fleeting. The brain receives stimuli and fleeting pleasure, but the emotional and cognitive needs that true connection requires remain unmet. Over time, this creates a sense of emptiness, a recognition that engagement is constant, but intimacy is absent. Comparison and social judgment intensify the effect. Constant exposure to curated highlights of other people's lives creates envy, self-doubt, and a distorted perception of reality. The mind interprets these snippets as benchmarks, prompting stress and insecurity. You are connected, but the connection is one-sided. Your attention is demanded, but your emotional fulfillment is ignored. Loneliness creeps in despite perpetual interaction. Overstimulation and cognitive overload further deepen the problem. Each notification, message, or alert requires a micro-decision: to respond, to ignore, to judge. The brain cannot rest, even momentarily, and stress accumulates. Sleep, reflection, and calm focus are compromised. Constant engagement fragments attention, leaving little room for introspection or deep relationships. Loneliness emerges not from absence, but from the inability to engage fully with anything meaningful. The illusion of availability also erodes boundaries. When everyone can reach you at all times, the expectation of response becomes a burden. Emotional labor increases while personal space shrinks. The paradox is clear. Hyperconnection produces isolation. You are reachable, visible, and interactive, yet internally, the mind feels unanchored and disconnected. Finally, constant connectivity erodes authenticity. Conversations are often curated, messages filtered, and online personas performative. Emotional honesty is sacrificed for impression management. Loneliness thrives in this environment because meaningful intimacy requires vulnerability, a rarity in an age of performance and perpetual observation. Understanding this paradox is critical. Loneliness in constant connectivity is not merely a product of external circumstances. It is the inevitable outcome of overstimulation, shallow engagement, and the brain's misalignment between quantity and quality of interaction. Recognizing this dynamic is the first step toward reclaiming presence, depth, and emotional fulfillment. The loneliness of constant connectivity is not an abstract concept. It is a reality playing out in every corner of modern life. Consider social media feeds, messaging apps, and work communication tools. People scroll endlessly, responding to pings, likes, and updates, but often feel an internal void. Engagement is high, attention is fragmented, yet emotional satisfaction is low. This is the dissonance of hyperconnection. The more reachable we are, the less truly fulfilled we become. In personal relationships, this dynamic is especially pronounced. Couples, friends, and families can be in constant contact, yet feel disconnected. A flurry of messages may replace real conversations. Notifications may replace presence. Emotional labor becomes fragmented. We respond to alerts rather than observe nuance, reply quickly rather than understand deeply. The paradox emerges: proximity without intimacy, availability without authenticity. In professional contexts, the problem is magnified. Constant emails, instant messaging, and real-time collaboration create the illusion of efficiency. Yet over time, the mind becomes exhausted, attention splintered, and creativity suppressed. People are present but distracted, engaged but drained. Loneliness emerges because the energy required to remain constantly connected leaves little space for reflection, meaningful collaboration, or personal growth. The cultural narrative compounds the issue. Modern society glorifies availability and responsiveness. Being offline is equated with laziness, disengagement, or disinterest. This pressure forces people to remain hyperconnected even when it is detrimental. As a result, individuals sacrifice solitude, introspection, and genuine presence for the performance of connectivity. The irony is stark. To appear connected, one becomes increasingly disconnected from oneself and others. Psychologically, this constant exposure creates cycles of dopamine and stress. Social validation triggers temporary reward, but attention fragmentation and cognitive overload increase cortisol levels. The brain learns to crave quick hits of interaction, yet the emotional void remains unfilled. Loneliness is not just emotional, it is a cognitive consequence of overstimulation. Physiologically, constant engagement disrupts rest, focus, and emotional regulation. Sleep is compromised, deep thinking is interrupted, and the mind loses the ability to process emotions fully. Even when surrounded by people, individuals can feel isolated because connection has been reduced to fragmented, shallow interactions. The reality is clear. Constant connectivity creates a paradoxical environment where accessibility replaces presence, and abundance of interaction masks profound scarcity of genuine connection. Understanding this reality is essential. Awareness allows one to navigate the digital world deliberately, to reclaim mental space, and to pursue meaningful interactions rather than endless, hollow engagement. Constant connectivity comes with a hidden cost: the slow erosion of autonomy and presence. Being perpetually available is not neutral. It subtly reshapes behavior, decision-making, and even identity. Each ping, notification, and alert exerts influence over attention, compelling immediate responses. Over time, this creates a dependency where external stimuli dictate focus, energy, and emotional state. Social pressure reinforces this dynamic. Expectations for instant replies, public engagement, and visible activity create a sense of obligation. Even when disengagement is desired, fear of judgment or missing out drives continued participation. The individual becomes tethered to platforms, relationships, and external validation, compromising independence and mental clarity. Another layer of cost lies in emotional superficiality. Constant interaction favors brevity over depth. Responses are calculated, curated, or transactional. Emotional labor becomes fragmented, leaving little room for vulnerability or genuine connection. As a result, relationships often feel hollow, despite high levels of activity and interaction. People experience the paradox of emotional proximity without intimacy, the loneliness of being always connected, yet rarely understood. Cognitively, perpetual availability erodes focus. The brain is not designed to multitask across countless digital demands. Each interruption splits attention, reducing the ability to engage deeply with ideas, tasks, or even personal reflection. The mental cost manifests as stress, anxiety, and a subtle detachment from one's own thoughts and emotions. The individual becomes a reactive agent rather than a deliberate actor. The physical dimension cannot be ignored. Constant digital engagement disrupts rest, circadian rhythms, and even posture. Screen time replaces mindfulness, solitude, and reflection, further disconnecting the mind from internal equilibrium. The body signals strain, the mind signals fatigue, yet the cycle continues, reinforcing the loneliness born from perpetual availability. Finally, there is the hidden social cost. Continuous connection creates the illusion of closeness, but it undermines the quality of bonds. Relationships thrive on presence, attention, and intentional engagement. When every interaction is shallow, fleeting, or interrupted, connection diminishes, leaving individuals surrounded by people yet profoundly alone. The loneliness of constant connectivity is, therefore, multifaceted, emotional, cognitive, social, and physiological. It is not the result of isolation, but of engagement without depth. Awareness of these hidden costs is essential. Recognizing the subtle erosion of autonomy, focus, and intimacy allows the individual to reclaim agency and begin the process of deliberate connection, interacting on one's own terms rather than being controlled by the demands of perpetual accessibility. The loneliness of constant connectivity is a silent epidemic. It thrives not in isolation, but in perpetual engagement. Notifications, alerts, and endless scrolling create the illusion of presence, while the mind, emotions, and relationships suffer quietly. The paradox is clear. Being everywhere, reachable by everyone, often leaves the soul nowhere. The first step toward reclaiming yourself is awareness. Recognize the subtle ways constant availability dictates attention, fragments focus, and undermines depth. Understanding the hidden cost of perpetual connectivity allows you to see the patterns before they consume your energy and emotional stability. Awareness creates the possibility of choice. Next is intentional presence. Connection is valuable, but only when deliberate and meaningful. Prioritize interactions that matter. Engage deeply rather than peripherally. Respond when it aligns with your values and energy, not out of obligation or fear. Learn to discern the signal from the noise. Boundaries are essential. Silence notifications, set offline periods, and create spaces for solitude. These actions are not avoidance. They are strategic retreats that restore clarity and emotional balance. Autonomy over your attention becomes a form of power, enabling focus, creativity, and resilience. Finally, redirect energy toward depth and growth. Invest in relationships, projects, and personal development that reward presence and commitment. Replace the constant stimulation of shallow engagement with experiences that enrich, challenge, and strengthen you. Solitude, reflection, and deliberate action transform loneliness into a tool for self-mastery. The paradox of connectivity teaches a profound lesson. Freedom is not measured by how reachable you are, but by how fully you command your attention. By controlling when, where, and how you engage, you reclaim autonomy, restore mental equilibrium, and build relationships of true depth. In a world addicted to perpetual interaction, those who master deliberate presence stand apart. They are calm amid chaos, focused amid distraction, and unshaken amid the demands of others. They do not simply survive the digital age, they navigate it with strategy, clarity, and power. The lonely paradox becomes a path to mastery.